I say we can all agree that competition law isn't supposed to protect an industry's dominant player.
Correct.
In light of that, I find it curious that the FTC is taking action to protect Sony, which has 68% of the global market for high-end video gaming consoles, from competition attempted to block Microsoft's proposal or their proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. As you know, Sony's been the most vocal opponent of that deal, and remarkably, the FTC has sided with Sony. Can you explain why that seems to be a good idea?
This case also has been voted out and is in administrative proceedings, so I'll let the complaint speak for itself. I will say, as a general matter, we always really benefit from hearing market participants across the board, including big players, but at the end of the day, we always make our own independent judgments based on the law and the facts.
Okay.
And I wrote a letter last month urging Secretary Raimondo and Ambassador Tata to deter foreign governments from pursuing policies or actions that target U.S. businesses in industries where the United States is a global leader. I ask unanimous consent to put that letter in the record. The EU Digital Marketing Act is designed to harm U.S. tech companies and ultimately help Chinese companies take their place within the European market. The EU has done a terrible job overregulating their own companies into oblivion, and now they seek to harm the U.S. companies who had filled that void to the benefit of Chinese market entrants. This is a March 30th, 2023 press release from the FTC, which seems to brag about the Commission's cooperation with the European Union's implementation of the deeply problematic DMA. I ask unanimous consent to enter that in the record.
Yes, without objection. So
We cannot allow foreign jurisdictions to harm U.S. companies under the guise of competition policy. But in an interview you gave back in 2021, you stated, "I think it's no doubt the U.S. has been behind the curve, especially with regards to the European Commission." And you noted that you were in close touch with both folks at the CMA and the European Commission on competition matters. Chair Khan, under what legal authority do you send staff to implement the DMA, which is not antitrust law from the U.S., but regulations targeting U.S. companies?
Congressman, I'm proud of the international cooperation that the FTC has long pursued under many, many chairs far preceding me. This has been a core part of the FTC's work to make sure that we are able to share with other jurisdictions the work that we're doing, and also able to understand the different paths that other jurisdictions are taking.
I get that.
That type of information.
You've also sought to undermine U.S. companies in the current negotiating round of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. The IPEF has used the USMCA as the basis of negotiations. Yes or no? Chair Khan, did you and Jonathan Cantor of the Department of Justice send a letter to Ambassador Tai objecting to the competition chapter and the digital trade chapter and demand a seat at the negotiating table for future rounds?
We have been engaged with USTR about that agreement. We've all
Did y'all send a letter?
Yes, we've all
Can I get a copy of that, please?
Happy to engage with your staff to see what we can share with you.
Thank you. Your actions from the EU DMA to the IPEF negotiations really run contrary to U.S. interest. Were these actions clear by the State Department, Department of Commerce, the NSC, or the NEC?
As you know, there are extensive interagency processes in place, and we work through them as appropriate.
Wow. Why should we increase your budget while you're sending staff to Europe to harm U.S. companies and directly benefit China? You don't have to answer that, but why would you help the EU undermine U.S. law and U.S. companies?
Congressman, details back and forth from our agency to other agencies, from other agencies to our agencies, have long been a key FTC practice extending back decades, and we've been pleased to continue that tradition.
Is it appropriate for you, the head of the FTC, to lobby foreign agencies to block transactions when U.S. companies are purchasing other companies overseas, especially when these reviews are happening without the oversight of the U.S. federal court?
Congressman, we make our own independent judgments with regards to our own enforcement authorities. We have some information sharing agreements in place with other jurisdictions, but as it concerns our enforcement actions, we use our independent judgment and look at the facts as applied, look at the law as applied to the facts before us.
Well, these policies are problematic, and I think what it's going to do is hurt U.S. companies from operating in Europe, from consolidating operations, and it will be to the benefit of Chinese companies, such as Alibaba, could enter European markets when Amazon or companies like that are kicked out. So Chair Khan, will you assure me the FTC will not urge Europe, the UK, China, or other foreign jurisdictions to block transactions or encourage those jurisdictions to extract any remedies for competition from U.S. companies?
Congressman, again, we make our own independent assessments with regards to how the U.S. law applies to the facts before us. We have some information sharing agreements in place, but every jurisdiction makes its own determinations using its independent judgment.
So you're not cooperating with the Europeans on blocking U.S. companies operating in Europe through the DMA or the CMA with regard to the UK?
Again, we have information sharing agreements in place, but each jurisdiction has to follow the laws of that country.